Welcome to all grade 9 learners and educators. My name is Linda Hackner and I represent the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Centre. In this unit today, we're going to be looking at the death camps, at what became the Holocaust of the Jewish people, the genocide, and the end of World War II. So, as I said to you in the last unit, what was happening on the war front was that the Nazis invaded the Soviet Union in something called Operation Barbarossa. And when they invaded this territory, they decided that they were not going to repeat what they had done before. They were not going to put Jews into ghettos. What they decided was that they were going to kill every last man, woman, and child who was Jewish. And how are they going to do this? Well, as the armies rolled into the different territories, following them were units of men called Einsatzgruppen. They were mobile killing squads. Their job was to round up men, women, and children and kill them. And this they did, grade 9s, for days and for nights. They rounded up men, women, and children, made them dig ditches, and shot them into the ditches. And millions of Jewish people were murdered this way. But the powers, the Nazi regime, decided that this wasn't a good solution because it was expensive, one bullet, one person, and they wanted to make it much more sort of industrialized and systematic. So they met at a place called Wannsee, which is a suburb of Berlin in Germany. And this meeting became known as the Wannsee Conference. By the way, Hitler did not attend any of these meetings or any of these conferences. They were attended by the upper ranks of the Nazis, but not Hitler himself. And the meeting was to organize a systematic method. And what they decided to do was to build death camps in Poland, and rather than go to each little place and murder the Jews, they would rail the Jews to the death camps. So bring the Jews to death rather than take death to the Jews. And that is what they did. So from 1942, there were 6 death camps. All of them were located in Poland. Now, grade 9, you'll notice here in this map, which is an older map, they called them extermination camps. That's what the Nazis called them. The Nazis called them extermination camps. But grade 9, we don't use that term. We use the term killing center or death camp because the word extermination is applied to vermin, to rats, to cockroaches, to when you have things in your house that you want to get rid of. And it was a term the Nazis used to further dehumanize their victims. So there were 6 killing centers, all of which were in Poland. And you've got to ask yourself, and it's a question I want you to think about, why didn't the Nazis build them in Germany? Why did they put them in Poland away from most of the Germans? So let's look at these camps. You have Chełmno, Treblinka, Sobibor, and Belzec. Those 4 camps were just, if you went there, you died immediately. You died virtually on arrival. Majdanek and Auschwitz were labor and death camps, so you could survive. You could survive. How did they get the Jews there, and what did they tell the Jews? Well, firstly, they created railway lines, lots of railway lines. And you can see they were railing people from Northern Europe, from Southern Europe, from Western Europe, from Eastern Europe, from Greece, from all over. They built these railway lines, or they organized and used these railway lines as transports for Jewish people to take them to the death camps in Poland. And they told the Jewish people lies. They told them, we are taking you to the east where you can have a better life. So pack all the belongings you need and we will take you there. And in this image, you can see people, note all of them are wearing the Jewish armband, the armband that that has a Star of David to prove that they're Jewish. They don't look frightened. They look tired. They don't look frightened. They were pushed into cattle trucks. This is how they were transported. There were no seats on the trains, and they weren't transported as though they were human. They were transported as though they were cargo. And 70 to 100 people were shoved into a railway cart designed for animals at one time and railed to the death camps. What happened when they got there? Well, when they arrived there, they were separated by gender. So you had men and women separated. So it might have been the last time that a mother saw a son, or a father a daughter, or a husband a wife, or a brother a sister, because they were separated. And then the Nazis looked at who could work and who could not, who was worth giving food to, although they got very little food, and who was not, who would be useful and who would not. And grade 9, it was the old and the young who were deemed to be useless eaters. They would not be useful, so they must be killed. So mostly at the beginning, it was the very old and the very young who were sent to their deaths. And if we look at this image, you can see little boys, really a little girl there in the front who must have been a toddler. She must have been 3 years old, and older women and older men, all of whom are awaiting their fate. They are going to be taken and murdered. What about those people who were condemned, and I've used that word in inverted commas because actually it was the Nazis' word, to live? They had their hair shaved off, and they, in Auschwitz, were given a tattoo on their arm, and from that moment on, they were completely dehumanized. They were spoken to only by number. You didn't have a name, didn't have a surname, didn't even have your head, didn't have anything. You were a number, you were a piece of cargo with a number, and that's how they were referred to. And after they'd been through actual showers, because those people were given real showers and given clothes, then they had to line up and do roll call, and they were given jobs to do, which they either survived or they did not. Food was extremely scarce, and people mostly died of starvation. If you have a look at this image of the men in the men's barracks at Auschwitz, this is how they lived, this is how they slept, and this is what they looked like when the war came to an end. Now, grade 9, the other thing I want to tell you is that all the photographs that I have shown you in this unit are taken by the perpetrators. They are taken by the Nazis. Jews were not sent to the camps with their cameras. So this is evidence that comes from the people who perpetrated this genocide. Liberation. This begins in 1944 and continues until Germany surrenders on May the 8th, 1945. So it wasn't just now we're free. It was a process. And even then, many people were free to go where? They had no home, they had no country, they had no family, they had nothing. They were put into displaced persons camps. Sometimes people stayed there for 5 years until a country agreed to take them. So liberation was not a joyous affair for most of the people who were liberated, but they were indeed free. After the war, the countries in the world got together and decided that a universal declaration of human rights needed to be put together, put down. What are human rights? And what are human rights that are universal, that every human on earth deserves, right? And this is put into law in 1948. There are only 8 countries that refused to sign this declaration. And those countries are Czechoslovakia, Poland, Saudi Arabia, Soviet Union, Belarusia, Ukraine, and Yugoslavia. Now that's only 7. The 8th country, South Africa. South Africa refused to sign the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And that is directly linked to what South Africa was planning to do in 1948, which was put into law the policy of apartheid. Now, grade 9's learners and grade 9 educators, I'd really like to thank you for watching this series of units. We have done an additional unit, Unit 8, which will show you, look at South African policies, German policies, Nazi German policies, and look at the similarities, differences, and how it links, and why this history is so vital to study in our country. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.